Somewhere in Iran, before the sun comes up, a door opens, then closes, and a person who was alive yesterday is gone by morning. No announcement, no warning, sometimes not even a goodbye. But in the hours before that door opens, something happens. Something quiet, something that most people on the outside never think about. A meal is prepared. What do you eat when you know it might be the last thing you ever taste? That is the question at the heart of this story. And the answer, when you finally find it, will tell you more about Iran, about justice, about love, and about what it means to be human than you ever expected. Iran is a country with thousands of years of history. Ancient kings once ruled here. Poets wrote words so beautiful, they are still read today. And the food, Persian food, is known all over the world for being rich, warm, and full of meaning. But Iran also holds a record that very few people talk about. Every single year, Iran executes more of its own people than almost any other country on earth. In 2023 alone, at least 853 people were executed. That is more than 2 people every single day. Most of them died by hanging. Most of them died inside prison walls, early in the morning, while the rest of the country was still asleep. And most people on the outside had no idea it was happening. But here is where our story begins. Not with the execution itself, not with the courts, or the judges, or the long years of waiting on death row. Our story begins with something much smaller, much more human. It begins with a plate of food. Because even in Iran, even inside a system that human rights organizations have called one of the harshest in the world, there is a moment, sometimes just one single moment, where the walls of that prison seem to soften, where the guards step back, where the rules loosen just slightly, and where a family is allowed to bring food. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Before we talk about what is on that plate, we need to understand something important. We need to understand what Iran's death row actually looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, because without that, the food means nothing. Before we go further, if you've never seen a story told like this before, you're going to want to stay until the very end. Subscribe right now and hit the bell, because the moment this video ends, you'll want to know what we cover next. Iran's prisons are not like what you see in movies. There are no bright orange jumpsuits, no cafeteria lines, no yard time with basketballs. The most well-known prison-connected executions in Iran is called Evin Prison. It sits in the northern hills of Tehran, the capital city. From a distance, it almost looks peaceful, surrounded by green mountains and quiet neighborhoods. But inside, it is a different world entirely. Former prisoners who have survived and escaped Iran have described Evin as a place where you lose track of time, where silence is used as a weapon, where solitary confinement, being locked alone in a tiny room with nothing, can last for days, or weeks, or months. Death row in Iran is not always a permanent section. It is not always a place where a prisoner is moved once and stays forever. Sometimes, a person does not even know their execution date. One day, they are in their cell. The next, the guards come. That is perhaps the most chilling part of this story. In many countries, a death row prisoner knows sometimes months in advance when they will be executed. They have time to prepare, time to say goodbye, time to think about what they want for their last meal. In Iran, for many prisoners, that time does not exist. Human rights organizations, groups that spend their time carefully documenting what happens inside places like Evin, have recorded case after case of executions carried out with zero notice. The prisoner's family finds out after it has already happened. Sometimes they find out through a phone call, sometimes through rumor. Sometimes they go to visit their loved one and are told quietly that there is no one left to visit. Despite all of this, despite the secrecy, despite the darkness, despite the fact that Irani's government shares almost no information about how executions are carried out, there is one tradition that keeps appearing in the testimony of survivors, of former prisoners, of grieving families. One small, quiet, deeply human tradition: the family visit. In many cases, not all, but many, the night before an execution, a prisoner is told, just them, quietly, by a guard or a prison official, tomorrow morning. And then, something is allowed to happen that is almost hard to believe, given everything else about the system. The family is called. They are told to come, and they are told bring food. A mother in Tehran gets a phone call. It is evening. Maybe she is cooking dinner. Maybe her younger children are doing homework at the kitchen table. Maybe the television is on in the background. And then she answers the phone, and the voice on the other end tells her something that no parent should ever have to hear. Come tomorrow morning, early, bring food. She knows what it means. She has probably known this moment was coming for a long time. But knowing something is coming and actually having it arrive, those are two very different things. So what does she do? She cooks. This is where Persian food, real Persian food, the kind made in homes, not restaurants, becomes the most important thing in the world. Because she is not just making dinner, she is making his dinner, maybe the last meal her son will ever eat. And every Persian mother, every Iranian family knows that food is not just fuel. Food is love. Food is memory. Food is the thing you make when words are not enough. Iran has one of the oldest and most beautiful food traditions in the world. Long before fast food, long before packaged meals, Persian cooking has always been about patience, about layering flavors slowly, about making something simple taste extraordinary. The most beloved dishes in Iranian homes are things like gourmet, sabzi, a rich, dark green herb stew, slow cooked for hours, served over white rice. It smells like the earth after rain. It tastes like something your grandmother made. Or cello, perfectly steamed rice with a golden, crispy bottom called tadig. Every Iranian will tell you nobody's tadig is as good as their own mother's. Or ash reshta, a thick, hearty soup made with noodles, beans, and herbs. The kind of thing you eat on a cold day when you need to feel safe. These are not fancy dishes. They are not expensive, but they carry the weight of an entire lifetime. If this story is making you feel something right now, good. That means you're paying attention. Comment below, what do you think a person thinks about in those final hours? We read every single comment. And subscribe if you haven't already. This channel goes places most don't dare to go. But here is the part that not many people know. Here's the part that changes everything about how you see this tradition. Not every prisoner gets that phone call. Not every family gets to come. Not every mother gets the chance to cook one last meal. For political prisoners, people imprisoned not for crimes of violence, but for speaking out, for protesting, for writing the wrong words, the secrecy around their executions is often total. Moved to a different location, executed before sunrise. Their families were not told. Their lawyers were not told. Their last moments, whatever they were, happened completely alone. No meal, no visit, no goodbye. This is the split at the heart of Iran's death row. On one side, some prisoners, particularly those convicted of murder or drug offenses, exist within a system where family visits are possible, where a final meal is sometimes brought, where there is at least a fragment of humanity in the final hours. On the other side, a shadow system, quiet, fast, invisible, where a person can disappear before anyone even knows to say goodbye. So which kind of prisoner are we really talking about? What is actually on that plate, when a plate is allowed? And what does it tell us? Not just about Iran, but about something much deeper. There is a smell that every Iranian person knows. It is hard to describe if you did not grow up with it. It is the smell of onions, slowly turning golden in a pan, of turmeric being stirred into oil, of dried herbs releasing everything they have been holding inside. It is the smell of a Persian kitchen getting to work. And on certain nights, terrible nights, nights that should not exist, that smell fills a home, not because of a celebration, not because guests are coming, not because it is a holiday, but because someone needs to eat one last time. And the only people in the world who can make that meal the way he loves it are right here, in this kitchen, cooking with shaking hands. In the cases where a family is notified, where they do get that late-night phone call, what actually happens next is something the Iranian government has never officially described, never published, never put into any document. What we know comes from the people who lived it. Survivors, former prisoners who were on death row and had their sentences reduced or overturned. Family members who made that drive to the prison and came back with memories they will never be able to forget. And what they describe, again and again, follows a pattern so consistent that it cannot be coincidence. The family arrives at the prison early in the morning. Before most of the city is awake, they carry containers, pots wrapped in cloth to keep them warm, flatbread folded carefully, sometimes a thermos of tea. They are taken to a room. The prisoner is brought in, and for a few hours, sometimes just 1 hour, sometimes a little more, the family sits together and they eat. Think about every meal you have ever eaten with your family, birthday dinners, holiday tables. Now imagine knowing with absolute certainty that this is the last one, that the person sitting across from you, eating the food you made with your own hands, will not be there tomorrow, that the sound of them eating, the way they hold their spoon, the way they say, "This is good, Maimon," you are hearing it for the very last time. Former prisoners who witnessed these farewell meals, men and women who were eventually released, have spoken about them in interviews with human rights organizations. One former prisoner described watching a young man on his ward receive his family the night before his execution. The family had brought rice, a stew, bread. The young man ate slowly. He kept looking at his mother's face. He did not say much, neither did she, but she kept putting more food on his plate, the way mothers do. In Islam, the religion that shapes much of life in Iran, there are specific beliefs about what happens after death. The soul continues, the body returns to the earth, and the deeds of a person's life are weighed. Before an execution in Iran, it is common, and in some cases required, for a religious official, a cleric, to visit the prisoner. Prayers are said. The prisoner may be asked to repent. They are reminded of what comes next, according to their faith. This is not presented as cruelty. Within the framework of Islamic belief, it is presented as mercy, a chance for the soul to be clean before it departs. And food, in Islamic tradition, is never just food. Sharing a meal is an act of connection, of community, of saying, "You are still one of us, even here, even now." So the meal that a family brings to that prison room is doing more than one thing at once. It is nourishment. It is comfort. It is memory. It is a mother saying "I love you" in the only language she has left. And it is, in a quiet way, a religious act. A human act. The most human act imaginable. Not all of the people who received those final meals were guilty of the crime they were executed for. Iran's justice system has been documented extensively by international human rights organizations, groups like Amnesty International, Iran Human Rights, and the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Iran. And what those organizations have found, again and again, is deeply troubling. Confessions in Iran are sometimes obtained under pressure, under duress, in conditions where a person is held alone, without a lawyer, without their family, and told to sign a document. Some of the people who ended up on death row, who eventually sat in that room and ate that final meal, had maintained their innocence from the very beginning. Some were juveniles when the alleged crime took place. Iran has executed people for crimes they were accused of committing as children. Some had no proper legal representation. Some did not fully understand the charges against them. And so the meal becomes something even more complicated. Because now, you are not just thinking about a guilty person facing consequences. You are thinking about the possibility, documented, verified, reported, that some of the people eating those final plates of rice and stew, surrounded by their weeping families, were innocent. And they knew it. And they ate anyway. Because what else do you do? Pause for just 1 second. If this story is making you think, really think about justice, about humanity, about what food means to people when everything else is gone. Share this video with one person, just one. These are real people, real families, real meals. And the more people know, the more people care. Subscribe if you haven't. And keep watching, because we're almost at the end, and it matters. Because after everything, after all the darkness, the secrecy, the grief, there is something almost peaceful about the answer. The food that families bring to Iranian prisons for these final visits is not special. It is not extravagant. It is not ordered from a restaurant or bought from a fancy shop. It is home food. Regular, ordinary, everyday Persian home food. Families have described bringing dishes like gourmet sabzi, that dark herb stew, slow cooked, the one that takes hours and fills the whole house with its smell. Others bring Zeresh polo white rice cooked with saffron and topped with tart barberries. It is a dish often made for celebrations, for weddings, for welcoming guests. And yet here it is, appearing in a prison visiting room, carried in a pot wrapped in a kitchen towel. Some bring ash, the thick, warming soup. Simple, filling, the kind of food you give someone when you want them to feel less alone. And almost always bread. Flat, fresh, warm Iranian bread. Sanguk or lavash or barbari, torn and shared by hand, the way it has always been shared in Persian homes for thousands of years. And tea, almost always tea, poured from a thermos, hot and dark and sweet. There is a detail that several family members and witnesses have mentioned separately, without knowing each other. When the time comes for the prisoner to be taken away, when the guards signal that the visit is over, the mothers always do the same thing. They try to give more food. They push another piece of bread into their child's hands. They spoon another serving into the container. They say, "Eat, eat, you haven't eaten enough." As if one more bite could somehow change what is coming. As if love, packed tightly enough into a pot of rice and herbs, could stop time itself. It cannot. But they try. Every single time, they try. Now step back from the prison wall for a moment. Step back from the grief and the darkness and the injustice. And look at what this story has actually been about. It has been about the most powerful thing in the world. Not governments, not courts, not the machinery of punishment. Food. Specifically, the food a family makes with their own hands for someone they love. Across cultures, across history, across every border and religion and language, humans have always used food to say the things that words cannot carry. I am proud of you. I forgive you. I am sorry. I love you. You matter. You are not alone. In the most extreme circumstances imaginable inside the walls of one of the world's most secretive prison systems, that truth has not changed. A mother still cooks. A family still gathers. Bread is still broken. Tea is still poured. And somewhere in that simple heartbreaking act, in the steam rising from a pot of gourmet sabzi carried through a prison gate in the dark before dawn, there is something that no system, no law, no wall has ever been able to take away. The stubbornness of love. The refusal of a family to let their person leave this world hungry. The belief, even when everything says otherwise, that this person deserves to be fed. The executions will continue. The families will continue to get their late-night phone calls. Some will, many won't. The pots will be packed. The bread will be wrapped. The tea will be brewed. And in small rooms, inside tall gray walls, families will sit together one last time and eat.